Welcome to the You Can Make a Living in the Music Industry podcast from Nashville, Tennessee. I am your host, John Martin Keith. Celebrities, working class musicians, and people who work behind the scenes in all areas of the music industry will share their stories, encourage you, and give practical advice of ways you can make a living doing what you love in the music industry. This episode is brought to you by Edenbrook Productions. Edenbrook Productions is the company I founded to help musicians grow in their craft. Are you a songwriter, but maybe you've been told your songs aren't quite there yet? Or are your songs ready, but you don't feel stage ready? Or maybe music is your passion, but you feel imprisoned by your day job and you don't know what to do next to make your dream a reality. Well, Edenbrook Productions is here to help. We offer consulting services via phone call, Skype, and FaceTime. And for the You Can Make a Living in the Music Industry podcast listeners, we're offering an introductory 1-hour consultation special. Click on the link in the show notes to contact me, and let's get you making a living in the music industry. Hey everyone, welcome to the show today. This week I am talking with Benjamin and Kassie Wilson of the Americana duo Goldpine. Formerly called My One and Only, Goldpine is cathartic, moody, raucous, and relevant, all wrapped into one package as they tour the U.S. playing for audiences large and small. We are discussing changing band names and how it affects you, starting over from an audience perspective, and the process of booking shows as an indie artist. Please enjoy my conversation with Goldpine. Hey guys, I am hanging out with the duo Goldpine, Ben and Kassie Wilson. Thank you guys so much for being on the show. How are you guys doing?
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we're doing good.
Yeah?
How are you?
You said,
I'm doing well.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, I'm not sure, but I think I'm good. You guys have been out performing quite a bit recently. As we're recording this in Nashville, there's the Americana Festival is taking place. Americana Fest is happening here in Nashville as we're recording this right now. And we were just talking before we started recording that you guys performed last night there as part of that festival. Is that correct?
Yeah, even though we live in Nashville, we performed as a part of a Texas artist event.
Okay.
Because we tour so much in Texas, I guess they just think we're from there.
It was an honor, though. It was an honor. It was put on by a place that we play in Grand Prairie, Texas, called Firehouse Gastro Park, and then a record label out of Texas. And they called and asked us to be a part of it, and I was like, wow, that's super cool. I mean, it's 6 artists, all from Texas, and us. We're honorary Texans.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how did they find out about you? Do you know? Like, how did the Texas label find out about you guys to bring you down for that?
Yeah, so the person who one of the people who put the event on was the owner of the venue we played at in Texas a couple times throughout the last couple years. And he just really likes us, and we like him too, so...
Yeah, that helps.
It's mutual,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes a difference when the venue owner or the people who run the venue enjoy your music, because they're the ones who determine if they're going to bring you back long term or if it's a one and done kind of deal. And I think we've all probably been in that scenario where you've been there one time and you thought it went great, and then they never invite you back. And
No, actually, that's never happened.
That's never happened ever.
I'm just kidding.
Man,
Just kidding.
And then there are those places that we get to go back to over and over, that you build these long-term relationships with people, and it's always fun to get to kind of build, different venues that you can continually go back to and tour alongside and build an audience and a fan base with and that kind of thing. So now you guys live here in Nashville, and Kassie you and I were talking before. I've been here for 20 plus years, and you've been here right at 20 years as of this recording.
Yep, 20 years.
And Ben, what about you? When did you show up here?
I moved here in 2006.
Okay, so not too far after that.
Yeah, so I've been here a while.
Okay. Yeah. All of us been around here for a little bit. Usually, a lot of times when I meet people or people come on the show that live here, they've only been here for just a very short amount of time, a few years maybe, so it's not very often I get to talk with people that have been here for as long as I have almost, which is nice. So tell us, where you're from, how you guys met, and what got you on this journey to do music together as Goldpine.
So I am from the state of Iowa. I was born and raised there.
I got friends from Iowa.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Cassie's from Alabama, northern Alabama. And I moved here to go to audio engineering school to Nashville. Kassie moved here to sing country music. And we met in Antioch, the suburb of Nashville, at a small startup church. And it was so small, it didn't have a building yet. It was so new. Met in the cafeteria.
That's what we call a church plant.
Yeah.
Church plant. Yeah. Sometimes I say church plant and people go,
are
what
like,
the heck is that?
Yeah. No, I know.
So,
I'm with you.
Yeah. And so I was, the first duo that I played in was me and Leroy Pirtle.
Brother
Leroy, who did the worship at the small church plant, and Kassie attended. So that's where we met back in 2006 here in Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. When you first met, like, did you both realize, like, okay, I want to do music. We want to do music together. Like, was it this natural thing, or you were both shaking your head no?
No. When we first met, I just thought, ooh, he is good looking.
Yeah.
And yeah, I thought he was so cute. But when we first started dating and got together, we both kind of did our own thing. Like, I did country soul music, and you were doing like audio engineering work, and he went to school for that and was working in different studios around town. It honestly wasn't until like 7 years ago that we officially became a duo.
Okay.
And people are like always blown away by that. They're like, wait a second, you guys have been together for 15 years, but you've only been a duo for 7. And, you know, sometimes it takes you a little time to realize, oh, we got a really good thing here. We should be doing this together.
Right.
And so we officially became a duo 7 years ago as My One and Only. So we had a different name back then.
Okay.
And it's only for about 5 months that we've changed our name, and we go by Goldpine now.
Okay. Let me ask you real quick before I forget, because I want to go back and talk about what you guys did separately as a solo artist and as an audio engineer. I want to get that for a minute. But I want to know first, because a lot of people do change their names. When you're in a band, you go from one name, then, you know, for whatever reason, you end up changing it to something else. And a lot of people don't understand why that happens. Can you explain for you guys, like, why you went from My One and Only to Goldpine? What was the reasoning behind that, and how has that affected, you know, what you guys do as a duo?
Yeah, so My One and Only was around for 6-7 years. It's funny when you come up with a band name, it's, first of all, a very hard thing to do, and you don't think about the implications of it 10 years down the road. And I don't know why, but I guess I didn't think of the idea that people would form in their minds when we were introduced on stage. Now, here's introducing My One and Only. It kind of gave off this very sweet, kind of not as much depth, maybe just like all love songs kind of feel.
Okay.
And that wasn't something that we felt our music, especially lately, is really, a good representation of that. So I think we wanted something with a little bit more edge.
Yeah. And
Goldpine, we just made up our own word basically, but it's fun to say too.
Yeah.
Goldpine.
Yeah.
Goldpine. That's the way
it is a good name. It is a good name.
But it was a hard transition.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask you that, like, when you've had one band name for so many years, and people have come to know you as that, and then all of a sudden you come out with a different name, and I see this a lot. People say, Goldpine, previously My One and Only. Like, you always had to put.
Yeah.
There's a transition period where you get to put both names on the thing, and sometimes it's like, well, why would you even change it if you got to have both? You don't have the name on there anyway. But I understand. So, how did that affect things for you guys through that transitional time?
I mean, it was hard because, like you said, people are like, why did you do it?
Yeah.
Why would you change your name?
Now they know.
Now they know.
Right.
But, so that's one thing we get asked all the time. And then it was just hard because you're completely starting over. Ground level. It's like
Not completely.
Kind of. It kind of is. Because
From an audience perspective.
Absolutely.
Because they don't know who that is now.
Yeah.
They got to relearn who that is.
And also, too, like, by no means, we are not super cool and we don't have 1 million followers on anything. But, like, as far as your, like, Spotify, iTunes, all that, you're starting at 0.
Yeah.
0 followers, 0 listens, nobody. And then they think you don't have any music. Because there was a transition that we were waiting for our music to come out. And so we would meet people when we would play festivals or shows, and they're like, you guys don't have any music online. And we're like, we do, but it's underneath our old name, and there's actually a lot of it. And so you're reverting them back to your old name. So there was a lot of that transition, like trying to get people to be like, oh, but this is us now, and we have music, it's just a new name. So that was kind of like starting over.
But all of the things that we had to get over with the name change, I think it was all worth it.
Sure.
For the name change. Like, I like the new name. I feel like gives off more of a vibe of what we do. And
I agree.
Yeah. So I think if you just make that decision to change names, you just go all in, and you know it's going to be a year-long transfer process.
Yeah.
And,
is that how long you
it.
feel like it took for people to kind of get on board and make that transition from an audience perspective?
Well, we'll know in about 6 months.
That's right, because it's still brand new for you guys.
So, yeah, like you said, I'm still putting Goldpine, formerly my one and only, on show posters and stuff like that. I think about a year in, then I'll be able to take my one and only off.
Yeah.
And just. Yeah.
So can I ask you this, where when you play a show now, and let's say you've played a venue under my one and only for any length of time, and you've got a certain number of people that come to watch you guys, in the transition of becoming Goldpine as a name now, and that's still being a new thing for audiences, has that affected the number of people that come to your shows at that particular venue that you've been to before? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I don't think it's affected that.
Okay.
We have a fan base that know us personally. I
Yep.
think no matter what name that we went with, they would come out to see us just because they like us as people, and maybe they like our music.
Right. Yeah.
So, but I feel like, we started touring more in the last year, a lot more.
Okay.
And that, just being out on the road that much, which we're probably on the road 2/3 of the time, has really been one of the greatest things for building our business, our brand, building our fan base, just being out there constantly. Your name is here and here and here. That's been a big deal. It's really hard to do that, to build all that stuff in that way if you're home half the time, and then you go out for a weekend, and it's like you got to put everything in.
Mm-hmm. So we'll come back to the touring aspect of things here in a little bit, but I do want to back up and ask you just individually. So Ben, you were doing audio engineering when you moved to Nashville, and Kassie, you were doing country music. So I'll start with Kassie because ladies first. So when you moved to town and were pursuing country music, how was that going for you? Like, how were you going about making that happen, and what kind of success were you having as a solo artist before you guys became a duo?
Yeah. Well, I moved to Nashville when I was 19 years old.
Okay.
All by myself. And so I was very green, fearless, naive, gullible, still gullible. And, my dad had just passed away. And so before he had passed away, I was coming back and forth, just kind of doing some demo, working with a studio in Millersville.
Yeah.
And so I was just going back and forth and kind of figuring things out. But I knew that I wanted to move here. And so after my daddy passed away, I was like, I'm just gonna move. And so I moved up here at 19 and just started not knowing what I was doing.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of started going to the bars downtown and singing. I wasn't old enough to get in, but I found a way. And so I would get up and just kind of sing a couple of songs that I knew with the band and just try to meet people and be around. And then I thought maybe I should try to do something like with modeling or acting or something. Maybe that would help. So I got like an agent and I started doing like just small things, trying to network and meet people. And I did like a reality show and just had some stuff like that. And so it's not like I had any kind of huge success, honestly. I mean, I was just doing what I loved and having fun, and ended up having I got like a manager and a producer, and I did have a record deal with a label called Montage, which was an extension of Sony after it closed. But I ended up not taking the record deal. So it was like my manager and producer, like we had worked all this way, we got there, and we had, were working with them, and all the contracts were going back and forth. And that was all mind-blowing to me too. And, I was meeting with different people, and they were putting me with people to write with, and they didn't want to write with me. They're just doing it because the label was telling them to. And so anyways, did all that. And then I just kind of felt like at the end that I shouldn't take the deal. And so we ended up not taking the deal. And literally, I don't know, a month later, the whole label went under. And so everybody that was signed to the label was caught in the contract, like Little Texas and Minnie Murphy. And anyways, after that, at that time, I met Ben. Okay. And so I decided to part ways with my producer and my manager, and Ben started playing guitar for me, and he started producing my albums.
Okay. Oh, that makes sense because you're an audio engineer, right? Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this, because you said when you were traveling back and forth between here and Alabama, in Millersville, you were doing some demo work. Mm-hmm. So for being someone who's not from here, how did you get connected with a studio in Millersville to start doing demos? How did...
I know, that's crazy, isn't
right?
it? How does that happen?
But that's the kind of stuff that people listening to the podcast that are wanting to move to Nashville to become an artist, they're trying to figure out, okay, what do I need to do when I get to town? How am I going to make a living and get my foot in the door? And these are the types of things that have to happen for certain people. So can you talk about that a bit?
So... Again, I'm from Alabama, and so where I lived, there was kind of like a modeling agent. His name is Ken Shelton, and he was just so kind to me and kind of took me under his wing. And I was trying to do some of the modeling stuff. I knew nothing of what I was doing, but when I decided I wanted to try to pursue music, he is the one that was connecting me with people that he knew here, and some independent labels. And so I was traveling back and forth, doing some demos. But then once I got here, I started doing demo work. And it's kind of like a hard circle to break into, because I feel like they have their people. But for people that are just getting started, I don't think this is still around. But back in the day, because I've been here 20 years, but back in the day they had this thing called demosinger.com. Okay. And so I got on there and uploaded my stuff, and so I got work from that, and so I was able to do demos that way.
There are things similar to that exist.
Probably now.
Maybe not that side, but there are stuff that is similar to that.
And I didn't somebody told me in SAI about it, because I didn't know about it, because so I'm sure that people that are wanting to come here, how can I get work? And it's good money. Demo work is good money. And also, if you have a trade like Ben, we have a studio in our house, and nowadays kids and everybody know how to do Pro Tools and do all that stuff, but I still sing demos from my home for other songwriters around the world, but just in the comfort of my home, which is so awesome. So if people have that skill, and it's all connection, it's all relationship, because I met somebody that played for somebody, and they heard my voice, and they do demos for somebody, and so that's how it happened. So it's just amazing to me how most things are relationship.
Yep, and we talk about that almost every episode on this show for years now, multiple seasons. From the very beginning, we've talked about how much relationships are key to this business. All right, so Ben, so let's go over to you. And you came from Iowa, and you were doing audio engineering. Did you come to Nashville from Iowa to go to school for audio engineering? And where did you go? What kind of got you into doing those types of things?
Yeah, I came to Nashville to go to audio engineering school. I went to SAE.
Okay, SAE.
Downtown Nashville. And let's see, while I was about to graduate the school, I think they hooked me up with a live sound gig at Tin Roof.
Okay.
On Demumbrian Street.
Yeah. Not Demon Brewing.
Yeah.
Demumbrian, right?
Yeah.
people at
the tourists.
Yeah, all the tourists that drive in town, they see
Demon Brewing.
Demon Brewing. What is that?
Don't want to go on that street.
Right on the heart of Nashville, right?
And then at the top of Demon Brewing Street is Buddy Killen Circle. So
yeah, that's true.
Kind of weird place around there. So I think like one of the first sound guys to be hired at Tin Roof.
Okay.
They didn't have one before that or something, I don't know. Officially, I guess. And so I did a lot of live sound the weekends for the bands there. And then I started doing some live sound at some other places just through different connections. The other thing that happened in school is they hooked me up with a recording studio, Jay's Place recording studio on 17th, I believe.
Okay.
And all he did was demos.
Okay.
And so I was the audio engineer in the studio, just engineering demos maybe a couple times a week whenever he needed me, which was quite the thing to see for someone who was new to Nashville. I mean, it was a cool process to see all that come together.
Yeah, because a lot of that kind of stuff doesn't happen so much nowadays because it's all done. You can do it from your home or whatever. So going into a studio down on Music Row or in that area doesn't happen as often as it used to for a lot of people. Uh-huh. So it's a different experience, what you got to experience than what people that are listening that would move to Nashville at this point in time might experience for themselves. It does happen, but probably not to the extent
not
that
as much. Then.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the key takeaway, I think, for your story, for people listening that are, wanting to come to Nashville and be an audio engineer, and hey, I want to go out and I want to tour and run sound for different bands, or I want to work in a studio and run sound and all that kind of stuff, is go to engineering school. Because those, one, you're learning the craft, right? And then two, they are going to set you up with opportunities that you would not get yourself. Like there's no way that you would have gotten into that studio on 17th Avenue, just coming out of audio school, probably on your own. It would have been a lot more difficult, but since they've got relationships with, with SAE, they can do things that you can't do just individually.
Yeah, that is true. I wouldn't have gotten those without the schooling. It's kind of funny. There's so many different ways to look at it because really, audio engineering was a backup plan for me. I always wanted to do performing and be a singer and songwriter and whatnot. And so I thought, well, that's kind of risky. My backup will be audio engineering. And so that's why I went to that, to the school. And I still was kind of playing music and writing and playing guitar at the time, but when I moved to Nashville, I was so intimidated by all of the talent here that I didn't play guitar or songwrite or anything for like quite a while, maybe a year and a half or so. Just like, well, there's so many people doing it so much better than me, and I focused on audio engineering. But now they go so well hand in hand, audio engineering and also being a musician, because running sound, knowing what you need for sound-wise for sound checks has been just super valuable. Knowing frequencies, knowing how sound systems work,
right? And
even us with our studio at home, recording our own records. We've produced a decent amount of our own records, and just having those possibilities. So really, it was a backup plan, but they go so well together. And you mentioned people going to audio engineering school. I think that is a path that people could take. When I look back on it, I do like that I got a lot of education in a short amount of time about that specific topic. Yeah. And I wonder, and we talked about this, different people while we were at the school, like you could, if you wanted to, take a sum of money and ask a recording studio, say, hey, can I just, shadow the whole studio if I pay you this amount of money, which would be much less than the tuition of the school, and possibly gain a ton of that knowledge from the school and even more experiential knowledge. And so we kind of just toyed around with, like, is it worth the whole tuition to do this or not? And I think there's different paths for different people. But I say that to say, maybe someone has an idea of coming to Nashville and maybe they feel like the schooling is not right. Schooling is not going to be necessary for what you do.
Yeah, it's not for everybody.
The experience and getting in there and the connections and just being hands-on is the most important part of everything. Because really, my degree in audio engineering, no one has ever cared about that. One time in my entire life, no one's cared about it. So what they do care about is, do you know how to run an SSL console, or can you fix this sound system? I mean, that's the stuff that matters.
Sure, but for a lot of people, that's going to be learning those things at a school like that,
and that is a possibility.
Which you may not get. Some people are going to know it anyway because they're just gear nerds and they want to learn that kind of stuff on their own. And there are some people that they want to go and they want to learn it in that environment as well.
Yep.
And we've talked about on the show multiple times that some people are super successful that went to school, whether it's music college or engineering school or whatever, have been super successful going that route and have been made very good livings doing that. And then there are people that bypassed that direction and did it on their own, learned it themselves, and they've been just as successful doing the exact same type of thing in different areas of the business. So it's 6 one way, half dozen the other. I think, for a lot of people, just depending on what it is that you're wanting to do. So
and it's the same with performers. Some performers are going to go to Belmont for a performance, or Berkeley or whatever, learn songwriting, but ton of people in Nashville didn't do any schooling. They just wrote a lot of songs until they got good at it.
That's right.
So there's so many different options.
Yeah. And I think it's encouraging for people because some people listening, that live far away and think, man, I want to go to Nashville or LA or New York or whatever and do music for a living, but I don't know how to do it. I can't get there, without going to school or something. Well, that's not true. You can do it. And so there's hope for people on both sides.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is cool. Let me ask you guys this, because I know I read it at one point and I'm just blanking at the moment, but are you guys signed or are you guys indie?
Independent.
You're independent artists. Yeah. But you're out touring a lot, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about booking and management and all that kind of, because I'm an independent artist as well. I've been everything that goes into being an artist. You have to have a label, a publisher and a manager and a booking agent and techs and whatever, all this kind of stuff. I am that person.
You've been them all.
I am that person at all times because I'm indie. And so for you guys being independent artists as well, I'm interested to know how that works for you. Like, how are you specifically with booking when you're out playing shows? Because people are always asking the question, like, how do I get into play at these venues? So can we talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, that's a good topic because a large portion of my time is taken up with booking and tour stuff. So.
Which is my least favorite part of the whole process.
I hear you on that. Yeah.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah.
If you're doing it yourself.
Yeah, it can be rough.
Ben's really good at it.
Well, then enlighten us, because
this is going to be good. I'm excited you asked that.
I hope so.
like, can you talk through the process of what you go through when you're trying to book shows?
Yeah. So I think the first thing to start out with for us is a good booking email. The email that you send to all the venues. Like, it has to have a great picture of you somewhere on the first half of the email, probably. It has to have a great, concise intro statement about exactly your intent of emailing them, and the dates need to be in the, that you want to play at the venue, need to be in the subject line. There's plenty of places on Google to look up how to make the right booking email. All your accolades, winner of the whatever songwriting festival, we performed at this festival, the winner of this award, like all your accolades. And then a bunch of your links, obviously, below, with probably some videos that you can literally see on the email that you can click on right there. I think that's what our booking email looks like. So
let me ask you this: are you you're just embedding pictures and video into the body of the email?
Yeah,
that's what you're doing. Okay.
As opposed to just a blue link.
Right.
It does just nobody. I never want to click on a blue link more than if I see the screenshot of the video, and so I put the screenshot of the video on the actual email embedded. Yeah. So starting with that's a big deal. And you making revisions, all the time when you're like, oh, I think this would be better here or whatnot. That's a big deal, is the email. And then I'm trying to decide. I'll say this with caution: is that persistence is the biggest deal in booking. Now,
sure.
Again, I say that with caution.
Yeah.
But I'll say it again. Persistence is the biggest deal in booking. And the thing is that everybody is so busy, especially booking people for venues, that they're not going to get back to your first email, and they're not going to get back to your second email if they don't know you. They're not going to get back to your third email. They might get back to your fourth email or your fourth follow-up. Persistence is the biggest deal in booking. So I follow up pretty much weekly. I'll send an initial email out, and then I follow up weekly, probably 4 times. So every week I'm following up. Hey, just following up with this email. If you don't hear nothing, the next week, oh, hey, it's Ben, just checking in. What do you think about these dates? And then the next week, hey, I know you're busy, just checking in. What do you think about these dates? Mm-hmm. And that has honestly been one of the most important keys to success for booking for us. And every time people get back on like the 4th or 5th follow-up, they never say, quit pestering me, like it's too much. Every time they're like, dang, sorry I didn't see your email, man. It's just been so busy. I've been so swamped. There's been so much going on. I've been out of town. Thanks for being persistent. And honestly, a venue wants you to be persistent anyway. They want to know that you're going to be persistent about promoting the show that you book at their venue. Mm-hmm. So persistence is a big deal.
Okay, let me ask you this, because as someone who spends hour upon hour upon hour upon hour upon hour booking, working on booking as well, when you're doing those follow-up emails weekly, so they haven't responded to you yet, and so when you do that first follow-up the next week, are you taking that original email? So it goes, once you send it, it goes into your sent file. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm getting real technical here because I'm going somewhere with this, so people just hold on and follow me here. Do you go into that sent email that you've already sent out once, open that particular email up that shows you that you've sent that email to this venue, and then do you take that same email that's been sent and then basically reply using that one, so that when they see you putting, hey, the follow-up information down below is the original email in that thread? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or do you start a completely new email and say, hey, I just wanted to follow up, and then all the information from the original email is no longer there?
No, it's always with the original email.
Okay.
So that if I followed up 4 times, the venue booker sees that all 4 follow-ups
Are in that original.
Are in the email he's looking at right now.
Yeah.
So I'll say that there's tools out there on the internet to help you with follow-up. I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
There's tools out there to help you with follow-up emails also. Mm-hmm. And they've been valuable for us. But again, the persistence has been a big deal. The following up. People are just busy, really busy. Mm-hmm. They're really busy.
One of the things that I've always struggled with, and that I find ends up being probably the biggest issue, is that when you're using, especially if you're using like Hotmail, Gmail, Yahoo, whatever, any of those type of open format emails, whatever. If you're using those types of emails, when you're sending out, booking information to venues, and you start putting in links of any kind, that automatically, almost all the time, will throw your email into their junk folder. And they don't check their junk folders many times, or it takes them days or weeks maybe to see something like that. So, and that used to be a big struggle for me. So a lot of times I end up not putting links in the actual email. I've kind of finagled my way around in the conversation that I'm putting into the body of the email to say, hey, check this out, without it being an actual link sometimes, because I know that it gets thrown into a junk folder, and I'm trying to avoid that kind of stuff. So I've kind of had to learn some different ways around that. So do you see that when you're sending out these emails and you've got videos and you've got links and different things in it, when they do finally respond to you, do they say, hey, I'm so sorry, this was in my junk folder or my spam folder? Or do you get that very often? Is that an issue for you guys? Or
I would say only every once in a while
Okay.
I get the response that it was in a spam folder.
Okay.
I feel like I haven't had that issue really.
That's good.
Or maybe I just don't know it because it's still in their spam folder. I don't know.
That's right. Yeah.
But no, I've had great success in the way that we've been doing it, and including links on the email.
Yeah, that's good.
The sending out the emails and being persistent is a big deal, but also being super organized. Like, I have an Excel sheet that's by state, and then shows the cities of all the venues that I potentially want to email. I have the date I have emailed them in there, and then I have notes about the venue, like, is this a venue I really want to play, or is it like a last resort? Then I have the email contact. And every time I email somebody, I go into the Excel sheet and update it. Okay, I've emailed this venue. I need to put this date in there.
Yep.
And then I turn it green if they've replied, or I leave it if they haven't replied. And if they've ever replied in the past, then every future contact with them is from that reply, so that they know, I've talked to this person before.
Right.
So staying super organized is a big deal. And then not only in that way, but also in your tour routing. So I have a map that I look at, and I'm figuring out, okay, from Pensacola to Nebraska, what am I going through? And I have 2 weeks to get from Pensacola to Nebraska. What states could I possibly be in? And what venues do I really want to play in those states? And maybe I'll email those venues first as a first priority, and then if they don't get back, or if they don't have the date available, then I'll go to my next venues.
Yeah.
And so, that whole organization thing is huge. And when you email the venue, knowing the exact dates, putting all of the available dates, but knowing the dates that you can and can't do it, because if you have to do as much work for the booking agent as you can do. If you leave it open-ended, hey, you got any January dates for me? Like, they're not even going to deal with it probably, because why does the booking agent now want to take his time to say, well, what dates do we have available in January, and look at 30 days when you can do your job and say, I can only do January 1, 2, 5, 6, 8. If you say exactly what you need, then you can get a more specific answer and not waste the booking agent's time.
Sure. When you guys are booking a tour, how, knowing that it takes 4 or 5 weeks maybe for someone to actually respond to you, how far out are you booking a tour, knowing that you got all this time, these dates you got to fill in, and in the back of your head it's going to take most of these venues at least 4 or 5 weeks to even get back to me to start putting this together and solidify it?
Yeah, so now I started booking more in advance now, and so I'm about trying to do 6 months out. I really should be doing more. I should probably be doing 8 to 9 months out, especially for house concerts, because they book up.
You guys doing a lot of house concert stuff?
Series, yeah. So those book out about 8 to 9 months in advance. But then you have other venues that might book out 2 months in advance. So a lot of the bigger stuff will book out 6 to 8 months in advance, I would think, at least for what we're doing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's probably my time frame.
That's cool. Let me ask you real quick. Cassie's sitting over so quietly, being patient, twiddling her thumbs.
No, because I honestly, I am so glad that he's able to share this, because he has gone through countless hours and meticulously researching and diligently calling and calling the venue, getting the email person, asking if the booking person is there. Like he's done everything. And so for somebody that is just starting, that's I don't know what to do. We wish we had known this.
Yeah.
I think one of the most powerful things that Ben teaches and shares with so many other artists is the persistence of following up. And we learned, I learned
that from another actual booking agent. Yep. I said actual booking agent.
Yeah.
Where she was I was talking to her, and she said she follows up 7 times, once a week. And I thought, when she said that, I thought, what? That is pestering. But the truth is that people are just that busy to where they need to have another email to say, oh, Goldpine's emailing me. Oh, I kind of remember that from the last one I didn't open. Let me open it this time and see what, okay, and I'll email them back. Mm-hmm. We've been playing a lot of venues that people we look up to have been playing, and we've been fortunate enough to be able to do that. And I'll say that you can get a booking agent, and I would like to have one just for the sake of time.
Right.
But sometimes persistence or diligence can almost take the place of that relationship that booking agent has with the venue booker.
Yeah.
And I'll go back to, I say that with caution, because I don't want to encourage people to be pestering.
Right.
I think if you follow up more than in less than 7 days, it's probably too soon.
Yeah, definitely don't ever do it more than once a week.
Yeah, it feels too much.
Yeah, and they'll basically blackball you if you do that.
Yeah. And you want to do it in the right way, in the things that you say, in the follow-ups, I think you have to be very concise and very respectful. But yeah, I found that process to work pretty well.
That's good. Real quick, I want to ask one last question on the booking thing, just because you mentioned doing house concerts. And the house concert circuit is hard to get into. I mean, it's very lucrative if you can do it, and you can get into a bunch of quote unquote venues of houses to play. People can make really good money doing that, but it's hard to get into that. And there are a few different organizations or associations or whatever that kind of focus on that. So are you guys a part of, did you get into one of those organizations that book for house concerts, or do you, what's the process for you to book house concerts?
So we are a part of Concerts in Your Home.
Yes.
From the Listening Room Network. We have played a medium amount of house concerts through them, and that's a good resource And usually, though, they book up 8 months to a year in advance, those house concerts. But I would say most of the house concerts are just from being out on the road. Someone has come to a show.
Organically.
Mm-hmm. They do a house concert. They know a friend who does a house concert. And it just happened like that. And yeah.
I mean, it does happen. And it really does happen like that. Like last night yesterday we played at Americana Fest. We only, there were 6 people on the bill. We sang 3 songs. I was in between one of the songs, I was talking about how we were a Kerrville new folk finalist in their songwriting competition in Texas. And we sang one of those songs. Afterwards, this lady came up to us, and she hosts a house concert series, and she usually does it in conjunction a lot with the new folk finalists. But during our year, we didn't tour with them because, of course, it was during COVID. And so by us just being there talking about that, she heard us, she booked us. So we're, and it's crazy. And that happens all the time. Like we just played in Kerrville, or we just went to the New Folk Kerrville New Folk Festival for the first time, just went there. And some people just heard us at the Songwriting picking things at the end of the night, and we just did one of their house concerts last month in Florida. And I think that for us, it just happens organically by being out there touring. People hear you, and then they want to bring you into their home.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
I love the house circuit, the house concert circuit, and I've done a few of them. I've always wanted to do more. I like it, I enjoy it, because what I do. I do a lot of acoustic shows. I take a band when I can for larger venue things, but a lot of stuff I do is just acoustic. So I'm always interested in playing that circuit, but it's just been really difficult to get into it. But so that's cool. It's cool information that you're able to share with that. So let me ask you this: I was listening to some of your music. It's very good, by the way.
Thank you.
And even on your bio, and I got your bio here, so I'm just going to, it says offering their own brand of raw Americana to audiences large and small. And when I was listening to the music on your website, I was like, man, this is raw. Like, it really is. It's very, very organic and minimal. I'll say this, and don't hate me if it's wrong compared to what you think it is, but I'll say it's like very minimalist in the approach to the way that you produce it. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I've always been attracted to the minimum. Like, I love great sounds, and I don't want to add anything usually that just doesn't feel like it needs it.
Yeah. And Americana music, for the most part, is pretty minimal anyway. It's like you got acoustic instruments, and what you see is what you get, or what you hear is what you get. Like, that's kind of it. There's not a lot of extra bells and whistles thrown in that you're not going to have. You're going to have it on an album, but you're not going to have it live. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of that kind of stuff in Americana music anyway. And
the minimalist approach also goes along with, because when people listen to our music on Spotify or whatever, we don't want it to be that much of a departure from what we do live.
Yeah.
Now, when we do play live, I play a suitcase kick drum. She plays harmonica. I play acoustic guitar. We sing harmonies. On the record, all of those things are there, and there's a few extra things added. Like, there might be a drum kit added halfway through one song, or like an electric guitar part on several songs, just adding some things. But I don't want to add like all these band members on the record, and then you see us live and it's totally different sound. Yeah. That was a reason for that. Yeah.
No, I even noticed it to the point that, and this is a compliment, because people could take this the wrong way. As a producer, because I produce as well. So as a producer, like, well, let me ask you this: when you're tracking, are you tracking full band, or are you doing it like individual? Like you're like building it as you go as a producer?
Yeah, individual.
Okay, so you don't have a full band in a room playing everything. It's all one part
at a time. He does it all.
Yeah, and I'm the same way, because I write music for TV and film type stuff. So whenever I'm doing that, for the majority of it, I'm building all that stuff. So I get that. Now, when it comes to TV and film projects, they want everything to be like up on the grid. Everything's lined up, perfect.
So they can shorten it if they need to or whatever, right?
Yeah, but they want to be real clean and precise and that kind of stuff. For a lot of it, there are some of them that are starting to get more organic in the way that certain things sound, but I'm saying all that to say that you're as organic as a producer as what you guys are doing, to the point that like some of the instruments aren't even lining up necessarily all the way. It's like I could nudge that over just a little bit and make that guitar note hit with the kick drum or the snare drum, and you don't necessarily do that. So which is cool. I mean, I enjoy that, and a lot of people really like that aspect of Americana music because that's that rawness. If that makes sense. What is your approach when you guys are? How do you guys approach writing and producing as a duo? Because people listening, there are solo artists, there are full bands, there are trios, and there are duos. That's kind of your options, I guess. So, but as approaching music as a duo, especially for only the past few years, kind of what is your take on making that, and how do you come to those final decisions to say, okay, we're going to do this here and this here, as opposed to getting into a knockdown drag out fight over the way that we're going to end it here, or we're going to use this phrase on this chorus, or those types of things?
Yeah, I mean, we do everything together. So we write all of our songs together. We do everything together. As far as writing, especially because we were separate artists, as I was country soul and he was like alternative folk rock. When we first came together to kind of meld them together, that was like a hump that we had to get over, because we were so stylistically different. But it was really cool too, because all those years we were together, we had never written together. Like I always wrote with people and he wrote with himself. So when we started writing together, it was really cool because we're so different that we can be talking about the same thing but say it completely different ways. And I think there's so much power in that with songwriting, because I would never say anything the way he would say it, and he would never say anything the way I would say it. And so that's why, I don't know, I just felt like there was kind of a power there, because we were so different that what we were doing just became different in general because we were so different. As far as like in the studio and stuff, Ben does all the instrumentation, and I'm not as much into that part as you are. Like we sit down and we like talk about things, where we'd want things, and we kind of do pre-production before we go in, but he does all the instrumentation and everything, and I have an input here and there, but I'm pretty easy as far as the production.
Yeah, that's cool. Let me ask you this. This is all you guys do, right? You're doing music full time, right? So you're out touring. I mean, this is your sole income, is just touring? Or are there other things that you guys are still doing in other parts of music that allow you to have some extra income, or how does that work for you?
Because we're touring, we aren't able to do like the other parts of the music industry that we make money in. Like Kassie was doing demo singing.
And you still do that, right? You still do that sometimes?
Well,
every time I get called, I'm on the road.
So
much.
Oh, okay.
So.
And then
but you're at least getting called for it.
Not as much anymore, but
because you're not available.
Yeah.
And then I was doing audio or like producing other people's records, and I'm just not home to do that stuff anymore. So the only other thing that we do is we have some rental, like an Airbnb.
Okay. Just the side thing. It's just extra income.
Yeah, but
that's
otherwise
cool.
touring.
Yeah.
It's such a hard thing to do, to be able to, to do music full time. I do 7 or 8 different things that allow me to do music full time. So, for you guys to be able to just really kind of focus on 1 or 2 things, touring and making albums, is a great place to be, and especially as indie artists. Because that's so many people listening to the show, they're like, this is what I want to do. I want to go out and I want to tour and I want to make music and I want to be an artist, and but I don't know how to pay the bills, and and I can't pay the bills just by doing that. I got to do some other stuff, because they haven't worked their way up to what you've put the work into just on the booking side of things. That alone is endless hours worth of work that you've done, and building spreadsheets and Excel sheets and all this different stuff, and getting a rhythm down on how to do it, and so that's I'm glad you gave all the information, because that's going to help a lot of people. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. And I was going to mention something. Oh yeah, you mentioned people just getting into it, being able to pay their bills and still do music. We out of audio engineering school, I worked at a coffee shop in Nashville, or while I was there, and I still worked at it while I was doing some sound at Tin Roof and other places, and doing the studio work. And I would say the best way that I can describe the transition from like an hourly job to music is like a slow migration.
Yeah.
Like I was working at the coffee shop a lot, then a little bit less because a little bit more work would come in, then a little bit less because a little more music work would come in, and then I'm working a couple hours, a week at the coffee shop because I had a lot of music work, and a migration of probably several years. I think that not only in emailing venues is persistence important, but in your music career, because people want to come, and if they don't see results in like 6 months or a year, then maybe they are giving up. And I think that people should give it at least 5 years, maybe 7 years, maybe 10 years, to really decide, to have enough information to decide if they should give up music or not.
Yeah, and well, they say coming to Nashville, it takes 5 years for anything to happen.
Yeah.
For most people, that's like the average. You need 5 years to make any movement to really, at all. So that's definitely right on board with all that stuff. So, well, this has been really, really good. I appreciate you guys coming and sharing all this. As we wrap up, what's some advice that you would give to people that want to do, either they want to or they're actively doing this, or they're working at it, but you guys are further down the road. How many tour dates do you guys typically do a year? Let me ask you that real quick. Like an average.
Hadn't come up with that number yet.
The thing is this year looks so much different than our past. So another thing that we didn't say or talk about is, we live in Nashville, but we played downtown Broadway for 10 years. And that is still being a full-time musician, And so, I just wanted to say this earlier, like people can come in and you get sucked into playing Broadway. They're the 4-hour gigs. You're basically playing for tips and a little bit of money.
And you're playing all cover tunes.
Cover tunes. But here's the thing that I want to tell people. If you come to Nashville and do that, we did it for 10 years. I still sometimes play down there. Don't get sucked in because the money is good. Don't get sucked into losing vision of where you want to go. I want to encourage people and say this. What we did, every time you're playing down there, it's like you're on tour. So we had because these are all tourists from all over. So we would sing probably 5 to 10 originals throughout the 4-hour set. We would say that we're touring musicians, and we would have an email mailing list, and we would get people to sign up and follow us on our socials. And then when we go on the road, that's who comes to our shows. The people that saw us here in Nashville singing for like nothing.
Or at least that's the base crowd.
That's a base
and then
crowd.
It builds from there.
Yeah.
And the base crowd is a big deal.
But that's how it started,
And have you found that a good number of those people that saw you on Broadway in Nashville would come to those shows?
100%.
Okay.
Like pretty much every single show.
Okay. Well, that's encouraging.
It is encouraging, but don't get sucked in.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. That's encouraging to hear that, because I've always looked, and don't hate me, please.
No.
But I've always looked at Broadway in Nashville as like the place where dreams go to die. You know, because you get sucked in and you're playing 4 or 5 hour sets, four tips for not a whole lot for the amount of hours that you're putting into it. Yeah. It's not a lot of money.
But if you use that to your advantage,
but you're showing you're showing an advantage to get from that is of using an email list or whatever from those people that are seeing you down there to build that into an audience when you're out on the road. And that, I think that's the key, because you're doing is you're not just playing Broadway to play Broadway and that becomes your job, you know, and playing covers. And there's nothing wrong with it. We've all done it. I've done it, and I get it. But you know, a lot of people end up on Broadway in Nashville, and that's as far as they ever go. Yeah. And then they say, I can't ever get beyond that, and then they give up and they go home, and that's the end of their dream, right? So you guys have found a way around that to be able to kind of get the best of both worlds. Yeah. To enjoy playing down there and the benefits that it has, and then taking that and making an advantage to use that when you're on the road and building an audience and a fan base on the road. That's great.
Yeah, and you would not believe, like, it's crazy. I mean, I could tell you story after story after story after story of the organic meeting of someone, like, I don't know, there, like at least probably 6 or 7 people heard us play in there. They were dating, got engaged, kept our card, and we've sang at their weddings. Nice. And that's not, we've never been wedding singing, but I'm just saying, like, and then people hire us to sing at a festival because they heard us, or people hire us for a house concert. Like, we were playing, not even long ago, we were playing on Margaritaville downtown, maybe a year ago. A film director from Texas happened to be in the audience. We were talking about Jesus because we love Jesus, and we were just singing a song, one of our songs. Afterwards, she came up and she started talking to us, and she was like, I'm in town, and she's like, I could tell y'all are believers. And we were like, yeah, we are. And she's like, I'm in town, I'm directing a documentary called Hope Lives in Hohenwald, and it's about addiction in this town in Tennessee. Mm-hmm. Anyways, fast forward, that connection that we made, we wrote a song about addiction because my brother's a past addict. I reached out to her after meeting her, and I was like, I just feel like you should hear this song. We were in the documentary, our song was in the documentary, because I was playing on Broadway at Margaritaville.
That's cool.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so it's just like these organic things. Again, you will get sucked into the money. Yes, you will make $200, $300, $400 a night. Don't get sucked in. Use it for your advantage. Yeah. Don't you think that's a good way to say it?
Yeah. That would be a different mindset than most of the people that are playing on Broadway.
Yes. And that's why I said that's where dreams go to die, because people get kind of tunnel vision, and that's all they end up doing. Yeah. You know, and they don't do the extra thing that you guys are talking about. So I've never talked about this on the show, so this is fantastic.
It is powerful though, if you think about it. I mean, literally, it's like you're touring, but you're sitting on a stool. Yeah. Like, it's amazing.
The other thing that playing on Broadway did was really kept our chops up. Yep. I mean, we were singing so much that we were learning how to sing together, just in a deeper way. Banter, trying out new songs on audience. I mean, there was a lot of value.
Learning how to control a crowd, to read a crowd. Because people are crazy, they're drunk, they're this, they're that. But learning how to always have, like, there was a lot of good. I did it too long. But the thing is, there was so much good that came from it if you use it to your advantage.
That's great. Mm-hmm. Well, I appreciate you sharing that very much. So, well, that's great advice. Just now, as far as like people that just want to do what you guys do, not Broadway, but going out and touring and becoming artists and songwriters and producers, what's some advice that you guys would share with people that want to do what you guys are doing very successfully? You got real quiet all of a sudden.
Oh, yeah. The one piece of advice we can give. Let's see. You got one?
I guess I want to encourage people this way. Don't be discouraged by one person's opinion of you. Don't let one person's no, which is 2 letters, control you. It's just 2 letters. you're going to get so many no's. You're going to hear and another thing, don't compare yourself to other people. So many people in this industry are like even like you didn't want to play guitar for a year because you were like, everybody's so good.
Right.
For good reason, though.
Oh.
No.
But do you know what I'm saying? Like,
sure.
I mean, the thing is, we all have our own gifts, and it's apples and oranges, you know. And we can look up to people or admire people, but we shouldn't be like, oh man, I really wish I'm not gonna make it because I don't sing like her. You know, God gave us the voice that we have, and we are the way we are because we're us. And so I just would like to encourage people to dig in and find your own voice. Don't try to compare yourself to others. Don't try to be somebody else. That's a thing I wish I could have told myself when I was younger.
Yeah.
I moved to town when I was 19. I was trying to be like Martina McBride. I just was like, I just want to be like her. You know, like I need to sing only high songs. And it took me forever to find my own voice. And then I was like, man, I like my own voice, you know? So just know that you're designed and your voice and it's your path and it's your dream. And even though doors will close, there's going to be doors that open. And if a door closes, there's probably a reason it's closing, like because you're supposed to go through another one. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
That's great. Well, that's fantastic. I mean, Ben, unless you can top that, I said we stop there.
I don't think I can top it.
He's like, persistently keep emailing them.
That's awesome.
6 times.
Yeah. Well, that is amazing advice too already. So you guys have been doing a lot through all this. So thank you so much. Where can people find your music? Where they find you online on social media? Like, what are all the places that need to look you up?
Our website is goldpinemusic.com, and all of our socials are at Goldpine Music. So we're on all of them: Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, same thing. So
okay, perfect. Well, thank you guys very much. It's been so good to meet you in person and spend some time with you and get to know you guys. And so definitely want to encourage people to go check you out and check out your music. And thank you for coming on and sharing wonderful advice today. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Enjoyed it.
All right, have a great day. Thank you. All right, guys, there you have it. I hope you had a great time listening to our conversation today. I hope you take what we've talked about today and find ways to apply it to your career as well. Please be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you listen to it on. And please share it with all of your friends so that we can continue to get this message out to everyone around the world. Remember, Edenbrook Productions is here to help if you need consulting services via phone, Skype, Zoom, or FaceTime. Let us know how we can help you begin to make a living in the music industry.